Hey, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. This is Harry from Hotspur TV. So another takeover on Vision from the South, my weekly preview show. I'm back again. Eugene, you're back on the show again.
Yeah, we're back on the show again.
Yeah, me and you actually earlier to get on this channel. And Matt, you're a Bournemouth fan. Big up. How you doing?
Yeah, all good. Thanks for having us on.
Nice. Okay. So I'm going to go straight into it because I know you've got somewhere to be soon. But first of all, let's get into your new signings. I've noticed Bournemouth signed Tyler Adams. That was a notable one I thought off the top of my head, and some other players. What is your aims this season? What do you difference? Because Tyler Adams, I think, is a very good signing, by the way. What are Bournemouth trying to achieve? How do you think will these signings play on Saturday? Do you think, or like, just tell me?
In terms of Adams, it's a great signing. But he's not going to be fit. He's carrying a slight injury at the minute, so he won't be available for the game. But yeah, we've made some really good signings over the summer. We've signed Max Aarons from Norwich, Marlon, Kirkez, Justin Kluivert, just to name a few others.
Justin Kluivert.
Justin Kluivert,
Patrick
Kluivert, son of Patrick Kluivert. So, yeah, we've made some good promising signings, and really, I think the aim this season is just to improve on the last season. Really, no one's getting carried away with with the cash injection that we've had from the new ownership or anything like that. So I think just an improvement on last season, really, in terms of table placement. We're probably looking. Oh yeah, Alex Scott, another great signing. And a couple of other Spurs fans I've spoken to this week have all said that they want Spurs to sign him for the future, and we're lucky enough to sign him. He's still injured as well; he won't be back for a little while, so you won't be seeing him on Saturday. But yeah, no, I mean we've done some fantastic business this transfer window, and it's the first time that we've ever spent over 100 million, I think, in a transfer window.
Wow.
Whereas 20 years ago we couldn't find £100,000 to sign a player, whereas now we can sign players for a group of players for over 100 million. So it's been a really good transfer window.
As for Alex Scott, I thought I'd just touch on him because that's the one I was really trying to remember. But obviously, Tyler Adams is the most recent one, so that's the one that came to my head first. So obviously, as you know, you used to mention that a lot of Spurs fans wanted him. Do you think he'll get regular minutes at Bournemouth, like starting every week when he gets fit again? Do you think that's why he went to Bournemouth?
Yeah, I think the guy's going to play. I mean, he's quite versatile as well. I mean, he played in a lot of different roles for Bristol City. And he's obviously got, international caps as well for England. Obviously, he was part of the very successful team back from the summer that won the Euros. So, Bournemouth have brought him in for the future, but he's not going to be, hanging about. He'll be in our team, definitely. I think it's one of those. He's come to Bournemouth, I think, to develop, his game, even further. To make that next step into the Premier League. Bournemouth's probably, the perfect club for him in some respects for the way that we play football. And, it's going to be one of those that maybe it might be a case of how long can we keep hold of him? Depends on how we progress over the next few years, depends and how his career progresses, depends on maybe how long Bournemouth can keep hold of him. But it's a very exciting prospect. So, yeah, we're all looking forward to seeing him in a Bournemouth shirt.
And also with Max Aaron, is another player that's been linked with Spurs for how many years? 5, 6 years? I don't know. Yeah. So, do you expect him? Did you say he was fit to play on Saturday?
Yeah, he's fit. He made his debut against West Ham. I think he put in about 65, 70 minutes. I think it was against West Ham. Bearing in mind, he hadn't played any pre-season games for Norwich, so he was chucked straight in. And he's a decent player, as I'm sure you both know. He's good at getting forward. He's good defensively. His ball distribution is very good. So he's a great athlete. One that really, really excited me when we signed him. I mean, they've all excited me, to be fair, all our signings this season.
Matt, just a question. Was Max Aarons playing against Liverpool this Saturday?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to ask this actually. Yeah.
The main signings that haven't played is the keeper Radu, who is, I believe, a Romanian international who we signed from Inter Milan, I think it was, on a season loan. He's coming to back up Neto. He hasn't played yet in a Premier League game or a competitive game. I imagine he'll probably get the nod for the cup game against Swansea midweek. Other than him and Alex Scott and obviously Tyler Adams, I believe everyone else has been involved in the match day squad. So, Max was out on Saturday at Anfield. But yeah, no,
because obviously you guys drew to West Ham first game, right? And then obviously you went to Anfield and lost. So, what have you made of the first two performances from Bournemouth this season, going into Tottenham? Then,
I mean, it's an interesting one because it's been a case of really looking, obviously, with the new manager coming in, and Andoni Iraola, he's obviously come in and.
I was going to ask you about him actually. Cause
he's obviously come in, and it's going to take a bit of time for him to stamp his mark on the squad. So, we kind of really been looking at it, obviously, from pre-season, and what we've seen over pre-season and the first two games, it has been promising. West Ham, we had a hell of a lot of the possession of the ball. Obviously, being the home side, you'd expect that. But it's a much improvement on last season in terms of possession. I would say probably for the first sort of 10 minutes of each half, I would say West Ham were probably the better side, but we soon got into it and controlled the game and looked the better of the two. Liverpool, again, it could be something we could sit here and, all football fans can talk about in the disastrous referee and VAR decisions that are made. We could talk about that all night, but I mean, first goal was ruled out, and the second goal, they both happened within sort of the first 3 to 4 minutes of the game. I mean, if you're 2-0 up at Anfield within the first 5 minutes, who you are, you've obviously started very well. And if we were 2-0 up, the game might have been different. We might have got something out of it. But I think as soon as the third goal went in, that kind of killed us off, really.
Yeah, Matt, just want to ask you. I mean, that game, right? You were playing against a 10-man Liverpool, and somehow or another, you still weren't able to, capitalize on your advantage. That's one thing I was quite. But to tell you the truth, last week it was an anomaly for me because all the teams that got red cards, right, didn't lose. They won all their games, and that's a very weird scenario. I think that's an anomaly for me. Even in the West Ham Chelsea game, was it the Arsenal game?
Arsenal.
Arsenal.
Odegaard scored.
Yeah.
Arsenal.
Yeah. So the thing is that, right? Because I always expect unless you're really a really really strong team. Of course, you're talking to play against Liverpool at Anfield, right? They are 10 men, and against your 11, they might be they have 12 men, right? With the Anfield crowd behind them. But what I saw is that you guys went out for it. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, you guys just went out for it, and of course, Liverpool. I think Klopp, intelligently enough, he picked up the holes that you guys left behind, and he, capitalized on that. So yeah,
I mean, that's the manager's style of play. You see, is to go out all attack, and I mean, we are going to open ourselves up to counter attacks and things like that by the style of play. But I think it's a case of where he's also still, implementing his philosophy within the playing squad. There's still new signings that are gelling. But from what we've seen from the first couple of games and pre-season, it is quite promising from a Bournemouth perspective.
I was going to ask, sorry, because obviously Gary O'Neill went to Wolves.
Yeah.
What was the circumstances that because obviously I was speaking to Craig quite a lot last season, and he was very big. I watched quite a lot of his videos, actually. Maybe you were on them too, so I can't remember. And he was very big advocate of praising Gary O'Neill for the job he did at Bournemouth, and because obviously he came in quite inexperienced, and now he's gone to Wolves, which surprised me quite a lot because I thought he would have stayed. But do you know what happened with Gary O'Neill? If you can remind me, was he sacked? Or...
Yeah. Basically, the club made a decision where it was time to change manager. Craig
he did so well, so quite surprised.
I obviously, me and Craig both obviously do our channel, and he's very pro Gary O'Neill. I did back Gary O'Neill and supported Gary O'Neill while he was in the position. But when he actually got given the job on a permanent basis, I did make the call on one of our podcasts back in January that I thought that Bill Foley, our owner who had just taken over at the time, would make his own decision during the summer to bring his own man in, and that's what they did. They wanted a different manager to come in. I think they wanted to appoint their own man, whereas Gary O'Neill, he was appointed during a transition period where it was going from one ownership to another. So it was a difficult time to appoint a manager. So I made the call back in January that we would change in the summer, which is what we've done. Craig, I echo a lot of what Craig says about Gary O'Neill, because I mean, we've got to take it into perspective here. And Gary O'Neill took over a club that, from
the circumstances he was in.
Well, he was a first team coach.
from Scott
So,
Parker, right? Last week.
Yeah, Parker.
no,
Yeah, you're right.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
it's from someone else, wasn't it?
yeah. No, it was
Oh,
from
wasn't it?
Scott Parker. Yeah, he took over from
Was it
Scott
Scott
Parker.
Parker?
Okay.
Yeah.
Ironically, the last time we were at Anfield when we got hammered 9-0, Scott
Yeah.
Parker left and they put Gary O'Neill in interim charge, but he obviously had to make that transition from being a first team coach into a manager, which isn't always easy to do for anybody. But he did know the players, and the players respected him and looked up to him. And to be fair, he grinded out some very, very important results that did keep the football club
I mean, you
in.
beat us.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
ground,
At
and
home.
we beat you and we beat Liverpool at home. He got some big results as well. But in terms of the actual future and the style of play, style of football we were playing, yeah, I don't think it was right for the ownership, and I don't think it was right probably for us long term. I couldn't have seen Gary stay in the job at Bournemouth under Bill Foley too long, in all honesty. Obviously, he's gone to Wolves now. Craig has done some videos for Wolves fans and, really bigged Gary O'Neill up. And I hope Gary O'Neill does a good job there, but I personally can't see it. I've got to say.
Okay.
I can't see it. I think he needed to go down to maybe Championship, and he's a good coach. He's done a cracking job at Bournemouth, but I just think he might be biting a little bit more off than he can chew at Wolves. So I think it's a little bit of chaos up there at Molineux. But
Oh yeah.
there's a lot of key players that have gone there. The difference is when he took over at Bournemouth, he already knew the squad as a whole.
Yeah.
And they already respected him. He's going into there, and obviously it's a whole new ball game. Obviously they played extremely well against Man United. They had a great result, and then they get thumped by Brighton. I think long term, I don't think he's probably the
Don't
right.
think it'll work out
But
it was quite a big. If you think about it though, with Gary O'Neill, I was very surprised, if I'm being honest, because Lopetegui I thought he did well at Wolves, Lopetegui, and obviously he left and Gary O'Neill took over, and to me it was like a massive step up from Bournemouth to Wolves. No, obviously no disrespect. It's not,
I
just
kind of
obviously Wolves is like
I can kind of see where you're coming from. I think,
especially because he was sacked, like you said. So I was
it's the club. Like I say, the club's got new ownership and they want to go in a direction. And Gary O'Neill wasn't part of the plan. No, I mean, we will always thank Gary for keeping us in the league last year. That was the main objective, and he picked up a squad that were very, very deflated by the previous manager, and took us on and obviously kept us in the league. So he will forever be remembered for doing that. But I just don't think he was probably the right man long term. So I was surprised the club did make the decision. I've got to say, I did call it, but I was still surprised that they made that decision. But I think long term, from the way we were playing, I mean, if you saw our last 4 games of last season, I know Gary O'Neill was trying out different tactics and different players because we were safe in the league. We weren't going down. So he used those games to experiment, but the performances were poor.
I think what you said, Gary O'Neill was more like the transition manager while the change of ownership, right? When you reach to this stage, right, like in your history, right, like now in this season, you're spending £100 million. Not in your wildest dream would you ever thought you spend £100 million on players, right? This is what your owners are coming in. And one thing you must give kudos to your new owners is that they didn't hesitate. They made the decision. When the season ended, Gary O'Neill was out, and you brought in the new. He's Spanish, right? The manager.
He's Spanish. He's Spanish.
Your new Spanish manager in, and he has time to actually start something else new. But of course, now it'll take time for, like you said, him to come in to gel the players, and you've brought in new players with injuries, which have not even been able to train with the new squad and all that. That will take some time, and the Premier League is fickle, right? Owners become fickle, and along the way, if you don't get your results, right, no matter how beautiful the game is, in the end of the day, it still comes down to one thing: the results. Right?
It does.
Which is what Spurs fans now fear. We've got Big Ange here now, right? He's showing all that, the old Spurs kind of football. We're having the possession, the attacking styles and all that. But once the results don't come out, that's when a lot of fans
Everyone's
will
going to
start.
suddenly turn, aren't they? That's what normally happens.
They will turn, right? But let's hope this season won't be like last season when managers were like, I don't know, merry-go-round, change of pick of
We
sushi
had
of
three
the day.
different managers last season, didn't we?
We have three here. And that's the sad part, right? But
Yeah.
Let me say now, more or less, Bournemouth is playing a totally different style of football. But whether you guys can be consistent in that style of football to give you the results, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely, yeah.
It's just going on to my next point, because obviously I have you here. You obviously last season your aim was survival, and whenever I speak to Craig or whatever last season, he was like, the success for us was survival, right? So obviously, in light of the fact you've got new owners who spent, like you said, £100 million, you've got in players who I have to admit, no disrespect, I was very shocked Tyler Adams went to Bournemouth when he was linked with Chelsea like last week before. Obviously, other signs like you brought up, like Max Aarons, who I think it's a good step for him actually to go to someone like Bournemouth. So, in light of this, what are your aims this season, and where do you think you'll finish? Are you guys aiming for the same mid-table or something, or top 10, or like what's the next step? I guess.
Obviously, firstly and foremost, if you're going to change the manager who kept you up last season against the odds and bring a new man in, obviously the first thing for me is that we got to improve on where we finished last year. There was some early crazy talk, not necessarily by Bournemouth fans, but by media, and that saying, could Bournemouth make a charge for the Europa League and stuff like that? Absolutely not. Let's not get carried away here. And I know Bournemouth fans are getting carried away thinking, we can get, 7th place or whatever. It's going to be, this has got to be a project, I think, for the manager and for the football club. He is going to need to be given time. And I think if we finish somewhere, I would say between 12th and 11th, it's the next step forward for us. And then we go again, we can build again. And next season we might be saying something different. But I think for this season, it's important that we finish the top end of the bottom half, just to show that we have moved on from last season slightly. I mean, the highest we finished in the Premier League in our history was 9th. I mean, if we were to equal that this year,
under Eddie Howe, wasn't it?
Yeah, under Eddie. If we were to equal that this year, fantastic season for us. So, but I mean, minimum for me, I'm looking at top end of the bottom half.
Okay, I thought I'd ask because obviously there's needs to be like a progression, I guess. Yeah. Sorry, Eugene.
16.
No, 16. Okay, 16. So there were two, 3 spots. Okay, 18, 19, 20. Okay. All right.
So maybe if they finish 10th or something, or 12th, maybe, I guess, maybe it'd be a progression, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, 11, let's say 12th, 11th or 10th, you can say there's some progression there from last year. And then it would prove that it was, the right choice to change managers and bring the players in we have.
I hate to use a comparison, but it kind of, I guess, like with West Ham, of course, West Ham spent a lot of years going up and down, right? And now eventually they've kind of settled under Moyes and they found the right man, and obviously they won the Conference League last year. But is that Bournemouth's aim in the next 2-3 years to try and get to that sort of level? Or?
Yeah, I mean, West Ham's not a bad example, but I would say, most clubs in Bournemouth's position with the finance that we've had invested, I would say probably the likes of Brighton is a good model to
follow. That's a good point, actually.
In fairness, because obviously, I mean, with us, I mean, you probably don't know, but we're having this state-of-the-art training ground being built at the moment, which should be ready for next summer. Which is going to help from academy level and first team level. It's going to attract players to the football club at all ages and all levels of the club. So, there's that we've got coming in. So, and with Brighton, if you look at Brighton, their recruitment is extremely good. That's something that we could aspire to, and. So and they're set up with their stadium. Obviously, our stadium will be looked at in a few years' time. It is on the cards to to be redeveloped, but obviously they want to get the infrastructure in place first with the likes of the training ground, which for me is probably more important than the stadium. Because your training ground is your weekly, your daily hub, where all your players come, and you can use it to attract talents as well, because the club wants to start producing its own players as well, and obviously with a really good training facility, it is going to attract players of all ages and at all levels. So for me, that's really, really important that the club is doing that. And then the stadium we can look at, a little bit down the line. So it's all about infrastructure for me, and I think Brighton's infrastructure is something that you could really, really aspire to, because they've done I know they're along the south coast, as with us, but it's not like it's a south coast derby, but it's not like a massive rivalry. But in fairness to Brighton, they've got a fantastic infrastructure, which is something we can really aspire to.
At the moment, how many? What's your capacity for your stadium now?
It's 10, just under 11,000, something like that. Yeah, it's just under. I think it's about 10.6, or it varies. Sometimes you hear it's 10.3, then you hear it's 10.9, and then you hear it's 11. It's just under 11,000.
That means your owners do have the potential of actually making the stadium bigger, right? At the same time.
Yeah. There's plans for it. And the thing is about our ownership is that they're all about the entertainment, the hospitality, the whole experience, not just the game, but the whole experience that comes with it. And obviously the stadium is part of that. I mean, there's a lot of changes they've made to the current stadium now, a lot of stuff that they've brought in hospitality wise that's really improved and really stepped us up a gear. It'd be a case of in a couple of years that that they will redevelop or build new within the area that it is now, and we will have probably, I would say, probably something along the lines of a 25,000 seater stadium that would be purpose built with all the mod cons. So but that's a little trip down the road yet. That's a few years away.
So going into the game, obviously as a Spurs fan, and there'll be Spurs fans watching this, what players do Spurs need to be wary of going into Saturday, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, there's several. For me, a player called Philip Billing, who Spurs fans may be familiar with. He's now known as Philip. He's dropped the Billing name, so I'll refer to him.
Yeah.
He will. He hopefully potentially with Lewis Cook coming back into the fold, he might be pushed back upfield again behind Dominic Solanke, where he can be a real threat and cause teams problems. The last couple of games he's played a bit deeper, which he can do, and he can do that very well. But I think his main strength is playing in behind the front man, where he can cause a lot of problems for opponents. I would also say watch out for Milos Kerkez, who is a left back. We've signed him during the window. He is very, very exciting. He's only 19 years of age. He's a full Hungarian international. He like I say, he's very attacking, very defensive. He's got a very mature head on his shoulders. And in fact, when he was at one of his previous clubs, he actually had Paolo Maldini personally phone him and ask him to join into AC Milan, sorry. And he spent a season at AC Milan. Didn't work out for him, but if you've got a player of Paolo Maldini's caliber phoning you up and asking you to join AC Milan, you've got to be a decent player. So watch out for him. He's quality. Patrick Kluivert, he's been used off the bench as a bit of a plan B. If he starts or comes off the bench, he's very, very creative, very tricky player. He can play wide, central, so he's got a lot of attributes. It's quite a few. I mean, David Brooks, he's back from illness now, and he's like a new player. He's been phenomenal during pre-season. So, they're the main ones. Obviously, Dom Solanke, if he has a good game, he can cause you issues as well.
Because I know West Ham have been linked with him. Is there any legs in that? If you can tell me.
Yeah,
because I have you on now. I thought I'd ask you.
No, that's. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about him. I think they've offered 55 million or something like that.
Oh, really? Oh,
I believe so. I mean, if you believe everything you read, I'm one of these that you only believe it once the players still got the shirt in hand. There's obviously a lot of rumours going around. For me,
Matt, what about the boy that scored against Liverpool? Semenyo?
Samania, yeah, another one that's really cemented him.
Is he a striker or is he a winger?
His positions. He can play up top as a striker. He can play wide. He can play in behind the front man, which I think he's most effective. So obviously that might be a case that where he's played so well recently, they keep billing in behind. So, I mean, that's what I mean. There's quite a few players that can cause issues for any team really.
I think Bournemouth. Whenever I've watched Bournemouth, they always had a lot of pace in their side. I've noticed a lot of just creative players. So it's always, I always see it as like a tricky fixture because you just don't know what you're going to get really. Not in like a bad way, but as in like Bournemouth could easily come and score 2-3 goals like they did last season against us.
It's a case that if we turn up on our day and we play to the best of our abilities,
it'll be a tough game.
With anybody in the league, in fairness, anybody can beat anybody. And that's been proven over the years. And you can't even write the likes of Luton Town off. I mean, they're going to have a good fight this season.
Oh, they're going to be a tricky game.
They're playing Chelsea tomorrow night, and everyone's saying it's going to be a 5-0. It's going to be a 5-0 win to Chelsea. But if
is that Stamford Bridge or is it Luton?
I can't. No, I think Luton's ground's having some work done on it, so I believe it's at Stamford Bridge. But I'm not being funny. If Luton score first, it could be a tricky game. But you can't write nobody off, and anybody on their day can beat anybody, and that's no different with Bournemouth, really. I mean, we turn up. We'll give you a good game.
Come on, Luton. So, as a Bournemouth fan, obviously Kane's left Tottenham now. I don't know if you're happy or sad about that, but what are now your fears? But what are the players say you're like scared of from Tottenham? Say going into Saturday. I
mean, you've lost Harry Kane, and everybody knows what Harry Kane can do. Obviously, we've all seen him and supported him for England. So, I mean, it's a plus. Don't get me wrong that Harry Kane isn't in the Tottenham side, but then again, you can roll off names of more quality world class players. Song, fantastic player. Sarr, is it Sarr? I thought he was fantastic.
Sarr,
United. Good little player there.
Did you watch the game by any chance?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I thought Tottenham were very, very good. Your goalkeeper, I mean, never heard of him, but I mean, what a performance he put in against United. So even though you've lost, Harry Kane, I mean, from a Bournemouth perspective, it's still going to be a very, very tough game. From anyone's perspective, it's all games are tough, but I mean, it's a good thing that you haven't got Harry Kane because that's one less player to worry about. But then there's still going to be 11 players to worry about on the pitch. They're all pretty decent. So yeah, it's going to be a tough game either way, whether Harry Kane was in the side or not.
But since you're at home, right, for this game, right, will you think this game that you guys will be playing a high line and going at us, or would you think that you guys are going to sit back and try to absorb the?
No, I think we'll play high. That's the way the manager seems to want to play. And especially being the home side, I will imagine we will come at Spurs definitely. I think anybody we play at home this season, we would definitely have a go at and come out at. It might differ different away fixtures and stuff like that. He might become a bit more tactical, but I think from a home perspective, we would definitely 100% attack. And yeah, like I say, it will open us up to counter attacks on the opposition. There'll be goals in the game. We're bound to concede. I'm not going to say we're going to come out 3-0 winners. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, it's almost a case of like, if you can score 2, we can score 3 mentality. So yeah, there'd be goals in the game. It should be, from a neutral perspective, it should be a very, very exciting game.
And do you think the fact it's an early kickoff makes any sort of difference? 12:30 on a Saturday.
Yeah, traditionally we're not normally
we're not good either. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
And especially Sunday kickoffs as well. We're not normally great with the early. Actually, any different kickoff to 3 o'clock, but yeah, I mean that's got to change, isn't it? I mean, it is what it is, and we'll see. Obviously, I know, like you said, you guys aren't very good at 12:30 on a Saturday, so hopefully that gives us a little bit of the edge then. But yeah, I honestly think for a lunchtime kickoff, and with how Spurs have been playing lately, and obviously 2 new managers in the league, I think it's going to be quite a good exciting game of football. Yeah.
So, what would your Bournemouth side? What do you predict the Bournemouth side to be on Saturday? If you can let us know.
Yeah, I mean, it's I would imagine it's probably going to be not too different to what we've seen in the previous 2. He did make a very, very big call at Liverpool by I think it was Brooksy that got dropped, and he brought Samane in, who obviously had a fantastic game. So he's fit, so it might be a case that he starts him again and leaves Brooksy on the bench, or he might rotate a bit on the wings. But I'd imagine it would definitely obviously be Dominic Solanke leading the line. I can't see him moving to West Ham. And hopefully he doesn't move to West Ham, but he should be leading the line. On the wings, yeah, it could be several players really. He might rotate, or he might bring Brooksy back in, or he might. I mean, there's Hamra Toure as well. He's a quality player. I'd imagine he'll have Clive on the bench. The back line, Neto, our captain, will obviously start. Max Aarons will start at right back.
Yeah.
Zabanier and Marcus Nessie, their start as a centre back pairing, and then we'll have Kirkes, who I've mentioned previously,
you mentioned
left back, and then in the midfield, like I say, we've got Lewis Cook, who should be fit hopefully. If not, then you'll have someone like Joe Rothwell and Phil Bill. Philip, sorry, should I say, unless he decides to push him into that more forward role. So yeah, it would be something very, very similar to what we have seen, probably the previous 2 starting lineups, maybe with a tweak here or there.
So do you guys line up in a 4-2-3-1 now? Is it like before, or is it just like a 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1?
It's kind of like a 4-2-3-1 formation.
Yeah, it is a 4-2-3-1. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
We've kind of got those 2 sort of sitting deep midfielders. The ball winners. But the good thing about that is that we've got someone called Joe Rothwell, who some Spurs fans may know, former Blackburn player, who's very good at winning the ball, and his passing accuracy is fantastic. He can pinpoint long balls, short passes. He's a great midfielder, so I'd imagine he'll keep his place on Saturday as well, and he's quite a key player in that midfield at the minute.
And how do you see the game going in terms of after a score prediction, like in 5-10 minutes? But like, as in, do you see, like, say you guys scoring first, or we scoring first, or how did you see the game going?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it could really go. I reckon anyway. I mean, if we score first, then great. But I mean, if Spurs score first, I don't think I will personally be overly worried, because I know that I reckon we could probably get back into the game. If it was the away fixture, obviously I'd be probably speaking differently. But it's I could see the game have some goals in it. That's why I said from a neutral point of view, I think it's going to be a great game.
Like 3-2, 4-3.
Yeah, it could be, or 2-2 or something like that. I think it's going to be a game of goals. And now I've said that, it's going to probably end up being a dire
0-0 draw.
Do you think that I see this game, right? I think the key part could be the battle in midfield.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
If you guys win the battle in midfield, then maybe you get a hold of the game. But we win it, you've seen
yeah,
what Bissouma and Sarr can do, right?
yeah. Oh,
And of course
he's
now
another
we
guy. Yeah,
yeah
Basuma.
and
Basuma is that his name?
yeah Bissouma,
Basuma, yeah, Basuma.
Another
Bissouma and
again
Sarr,
great player, played excellent against United.
yeah.
So yeah,
So
you're absolutely right. It's all about the midfield battle.
the battle midfield. But the thing is now is that we've got being Spurs, right? We've got this injury
I
scare
was going
with
to ask this question,
Madison.
but Eugene read my mind. So
Yeah,
Madison, yeah.
Madison is we've got
Yes,
an injury scare with Madison, right? So the thing is
yeah,
that most probably we might have to play with Lo Celso, or maybe we do not know who's going to play in the creative side, or I'm not sure whether will Ange put Skip in. That's
yeah,
but that will turn us into a more defensive kind of a scenario. But
yeah.
it's hard to say. But that's
That's
it. The battle midfield, if because at the moment now, like I said, that's where the heart of our engine is, right? That actually drives our squad forward. And you're playing a 4-2-3-1. That means more or less you will crowd that midfield with 5 players against us 3 if you go into a defensive mode.
Yeah, I mean it's quite an interesting point that you bring up Madison there because we did a head-to-head show on our channel last night, and we always ask before the guest comes on to pick his 3 key players. And he picked Madison, and as we filmed it, that's when he said Madison looks likely to be out. And
Yeah, the news I think broke.
yeah,
Yeah,
he did mention is it Celso?
Lo Celso, Lo
That's also,
Celso.
Celso. He did mention about him possibly coming in, but he seems to think. Oh, well, he seemed to have said that he hasn't had the greatest of Spurs careers so far.
No, he hasn't.
And then he
No.
did mention Skip as well coming in. So it'd be interesting to see who Ange puts in into the midfield for Saturday. A little bit more pleasing that Madison's out because obviously we all know what Madison can do. And
Do you know? I forgot his name now. Leicester Fat Till I Die TV. That's
oh,
do you know
Chris.
what I'm talking about?
Chris. Yeah,
Chris,
Chris.
Yeah.
So I went on his show last year, and I kept saying, "I want Spurs to sign Madison. I want Spurs to sign
Yeah.
Madison." You're not going to get him. And obviously, when we did the swap with the Winks and the Madison thing, I went on his show again, and he was like, "You got your guy."
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah. No, we obviously we know Chris. We've worked a lot
Yeah.
with Chris over the time. He's a
Yeah.
good guy, Chris. So yeah, but
This is a shout out to Chris.
yeah, big
Yeah,
shout out
big
to
shout
Chris.
out.
He's
That's
all right,
good.
Chris. But obviously Chris's loss is your game with Madison. But yeah, that's pleasing to see that from a Bournemouth perspective that he won't be.
Because he'll be like a massive loss for us. Because in the first 2 games, he's obviously Basuma's probably been the most dominant or the dominant person, but Madison's literally pulling the strings in terms of like the attacking side.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's definitely a plus from the Bournemouth perspective. But then again, like with Harry Kane, you haven't got Madison, but there's someone else or some other tactic that you can use to to your advantage. So it's still going to make it a tough game. But yeah, happy that he's not available.
I knew you'd say that. I was like, he's going to be Madison's out. So if you could give me a score, like what would you say?
Well, I've got to follow my heart and back my team. So for me, I'm going to go with I've said it all week, so I'm going to go with a 2-1 win Bournemouth. Reason being is that, like I say, the new manager's given us the faith and the belief that, we can, play anybody now, really. I mean, the type of football I've seen. So, I think on our day, we could beat anybody. So, it'd be an interesting head-to-head between 2 new Premier League managers.
Yeah.
Definitely. And obviously with us being the home side as well, I just hope that gives us that little extra edge. Obviously, the squad members that are still here that played in the 1-0 win, that was Liverpool, the win up at Tottenham, will obviously be buzzing and know that that on our day we can beat Spurs. So yeah, I'm going to go with 2-1 win.
Interesting.
Okay. See, I was on Eugene show earlier, sorry, and I said 2-1 Tottenham actually, ironically.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
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 And
I said
Eugene, do you have a score prediction at all? I think maybe you
no.
said
I mean,
3-1. Was it 3-1?
I was saying more or less it will be a 2-0 or 3-0 Spurs win because
Mm.
at this moment I only can see one thing: how Ange plays his ball, right? And I've taken into account that what happened during the Saturday game against you guys when you had 10-man Liverpool, and somehow another Liverpool was still able to unlock you guys with 10 men. So like I said, if you have if you guys had the ball and you're in possession and you're playing the high line and we were able to counter it and yeah, put Kulu in midfield. Yeah, that's what you've been saying all the while.
I've been saying this for like 3
Yeah,
weeks.
yeah. And let's say if we do have that chance, right? Because as I see Ange ball, we don't sit back. You know what I'm saying? And we'll try to move as fast as possible, and we'll see how that goes in the end. Because I did see your defensive frailties when you came out to actually all out attack against Liverpool. So but at home maybe the manager will be a bit more, I call not so gung ho. You will still want possession, but don't go all out crazy. Like you were in Liverpool, you were 2-1 down. I mean, even if you don't attack, you still lose, right? So you just went all out to try to get the equalizer and losing 3-1 at Anfield, but it won't be a shame because the last season, you know what happened there, right? So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And don't forget, last season what happened when we played you guys, you were 2 goals up within like the first half.
Yeah.
Right. And we had to fight our way back again.
It's
Right.
a,
So
That was a crazy game, actually.
yeah,
If it wasn't Bentancur, I don't think we would
yeah.
have got
Ben
anything.
scored 2 late goals or something like that.
it's
Yeah.
a funny old game, as Jimmy Greaves used to say, and
Yeah.
anything can happen. So it's gonna be a good game of football anyway, definitely.
Mhm. Yeah. But I'm surprised that your manager ain't trying like the new players that you have, like Justin Clivert and all that. Why didn't he? Well, I mean, maybe he needs time to assimilate them to the team
Yeah,
to
yeah,
let them understand the type of football that is required of them to play.
yeah.
Right. So
It's a
yeah,
big transition with obviously the signings and the manager. Like I said earlier. So, but no doubt the players that we have signed have all been quality players, so and have improved the team. So, and obviously with the transfer window still open, I don't think our transfer business is probably fully over yet. So,
who else have been linked with to sign then in the next week or so?
There's been loads of names in the
Or
press.
where are you looking to strengthen? That's probably a better question
I
to
think,
ask.
I think for me
Yeah.
now, really, it would be handy to bring in another forward, another striker. We've got loads of wingers. We're blessed with wingers. There's a player that we've got that even your manager admires a lot. Ryan Christie, who he had at Celtic. Again, another cracking player who can play across the midfield. He can play. He's even played the deep role for us before, so he's a fantastic footballer. I mean, like I said, Brooksy, Clivert, Traore, Dango Atara, who's out injured at the minute. I mean, we're absolutely blessed for wide men. It'd be nice to bring in we've got two very good goalkeepers. I think our defence is there or thereabouts. So it'd be nice to see maybe another striker join the ranks for me.
We probably need one as well, to be honest.
no, we of course we need one, right? Right.
Yeah.
The only thing now I think to your benefit is our front three ain't clicking, right? But to your detriment is that we are still getting goals from other departments,
Yeah,
from the
yeah, yeah.
midfield,
I
from
mean,
the defenders.
yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate that the front three ain't clicking, but there's going to be a time when they are going to click, and when they click, I think they're going to be pretty decent. That
Yeah.
front three.
I
It's
noticed your
just
Defoe shirt in the back. Sorry, I just want to say.
Oh yeah, I got a couple of
Yeah.
Defoe shirts. Yeah, and actually these are all Tottenham related ex-Bournemouth players here.
Adam Smith, I know. Adam
He's still a
Smith.
current one.
Yeah.
But obviously Charlie
Charlie
Daniels,
Daniels. Yeah.
he was
Oh,
part of
yeah.
the Tottenham youth, and
I
obviously
remember him. Yeah.
Defoe obviously played and was very successful at Tottenham, and was a bit of a hero of mine because he originally come to Bournemouth on loan when he was like 17, and
Was it Harry who brought him?
no, he was actually playing for Harry at West Ham at the
Was it
time,
West?
and
Yeah.
it was an old Bournemouth manager, Sean O'Driscoll,
Oh, he's
this
the one who. All right.
Yeah, brought him in.
I actually have a signed Defoe shirt. I have two. It's a long story, but yeah, signed by him. Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't have a signed Defoe shirt. I've got quite a lot of. And Craig will tell you, I've got a massive shirt collection, which Craig's quite envious of, and you know, he can spend hours talking about my collection of Bournemouth shirts, which expands over, I think it's about 110 shirts I put all together.
Oh, that's
But
a lot of shit.
yeah, so so I have got a couple with the legend Defoe on because great.
He was so good.
Yeah.
I love Defoe. He was one of my
Yeah.
favorite players, I think.
Yeah, no, and then for me, I think he's one of my favorite all time players as well. Absolutely phenomenal. Wasn't so prolific for Bournemouth in his second spell, but it was just great to see him back in a Bournemouth shirt again after all those years when he was a youngster, and I mean, he scored like 10 games in a row, and you know, playing the old Division 2, and this little lad turns
that's
up.
what made him, wasn't it? The Bournemouth
Yeah,
way, wasn't it?
I mean, he went straight back into the West Ham side, and the rest is, as they say, history. And he went on and had a great career. You know, with Pompey and yourselves, and obviously played for England. You know, with the likes of Rooney being around. You know, if Rooney wasn't around so much, you know, Defoe probably would have got a lot more opportunity at international level as well. But yeah, no, what a player! What a player!
And obviously Harry Redknapp, if I'm
Yeah.
not wrong, he visits Bournemouth still a lot.
He still lives down here.
He doesn't go to games a lot. Sorry, he doesn't.
Yeah. He's always at the games. He's a good friend of our channel. He's been on our channel quite a lot. Harry. He's got a grandson in the youth setup. So he he watches quite a bit of the youth games as well. But yeah, he's at every home game. Harry. Like I say, he still lives in the area, so he still comes down and supports the club. And obviously, from a manager point of view, he made his start at Bournemouth, and which sort of leapfrogged him onto a great managerial career. So, and obviously at Tottenham, he had a fantastic time at Tottenham. I thought, but
because I don't know if Craig told you, he's probably my favorite ever Spurs manager.
To be fair, I spoke to someone else this week on our head-to-head, a guy called Jack from Rule the Roost, I think it's called.
Yeah, I know who's talking about.
Yeah, Jack, and he really spoke highly of Harry, and he said it's probably some of his best moments as a Spurs fan was when Harry was in charge. And you can kind of you can see why, because obviously, apart from Poch getting you to the Champions League final, it's sort of been a little bit
I know what you're saying.
Underachieving, is that the right word?
Yeah.
Which you probably got certain people you can blame for that, but
we're not going to get into it on this show. But because obviously Redknapp had the side with Modric, Bale, Lennon, Van der Vaart, Adebayor, even
Redknapp that changed Bale from a left back into forward. Was it?
Sorry.
Was it Redknapp that changed Bell from the left back role and
Redknapp. So the story is that this is ironic, isn't it? He was meant to go out on loan to Birmingham, and then Okoto got injured, so Bell came back into the side. And then when Okoto came back into the side, they couldn't drop Bale, so they moved Bell as the left winger. And then the rest is history, as we say.
All I remember was that game. Was it away at Inter Milan where he was?
Patrick.
We've actually got a video on our channel with Harry, and he speaks about all the world-class players he's worked with, and all the good players, and he goes into detail a lot about Gareth Bale, and it's quite interesting. And it's amazing what sometimes managers spot in players, and obviously something was spotted there, and obviously he went on to have a great career.
And I think also with Modric, I know you may be less familiar with him, but when Redknapp came in, a lot of Spurs fans actually didn't really appreciate Modric, and he saw the talent. I knew that he had talent because I watched him in the Euros before we signed him, but he used him initially as a number 10, and then he moved him onto the left, and then eventually into the middle. So he let him kind of adapt to the league in like a season or two. And obviously we've got the Modric we have today now, or the last 10 years, whatever you say. So the guy obviously knows what he's doing. He has a talent.
And I think
and the way he talks about football is just. The thing with Harry, I noticed he loves talking about football.
Yeah.
He just loves football. Yeah.
I mean, I think he says on our video, like Modric is probably one of the best players he's ever worked with. And so and that was a strength of Harry's. Obviously, I mean, even when he was at Bournemouth, I mean, the club had no money, and he had to dive into the non-leagues and pluck players from there, and so and he turned sides into sides that won the lower divisions over the years. So at Bournemouth, so he can obviously spot a lot in a player. Not just the talent, but obviously what other attributes they have to play different roles. So he's obviously for you guys a great manager. For Bournemouth, he was a fantastic manager, and probably apart from Brian Clough, is one of the England managers, one of the managers that you think that should have really probably managed England at some point.
That's another discussion, but I do agree with you. Yeah. Even though it would have hurt, I do agree with you. He got sacked after that anyway at Tottenham.
He did. Yeah, but good old guy Harry.
Yeah. So before we get to the end of the stream, where can we find you, Matt?
Oh yeah, so our channel is called Up the Cherries in all departments. We're also part of the TalkSport fan network. We're on all platforms. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. You name it. If it's a platform, we're on it. And the channel's got not mainly obviously Bournemouth related content, obviously, but we do have celebrity guests every now and then. So for example, for our Spurs preview last season, we had a guy called Simon Day. If you're a fan of the Far Show, you'll know who he is. And we've also had people like Chris Agabusi. We've had Mark McAdam from Sky Sports on quite regularly.
Oh yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah, Mark McAdam comes and joins sometimes. Natalie Sawyer, also from Sky. We've had her on. So Craig tends to deal with the celebrities.
The high end.
I tend to deal with the ex-players, and we've got a lot of ex-players videos, like Charlie Daniels, for example. Ex-Spurs player. He was a privilege to interview. So we've got all things like that, as well as our weekly podcasts. It's
a really good channel, guys. So go and subscribe to Up the Cherries.
Check
if you want, put the link in the chat. So I'm trying to find the channel right now to put it in the chat, but I can't find it.
I'll chuck it in. I'll chuck it in. That's fine. I've got it here. So it's always to hand. So I shall chuck it in for you. No issue. The link. There we go. The link to the channel. There we go. Right, and I'll pop it in there now. Where's your chat? There's your chat. How do you add to your chat? Send messages. Is any enjoy the show? It won't let me put it in.
If you can't send it direct to the chat,
I'll send it privately. Yeah,
I can put it in the chat. Yeah.
Right, it should come through. Yeah, that's to get to the YouTube channel anyway, and that will take you to all our videos.
Yeah, it should be there now. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Okay. So guys, subscribe to them. Really good content. Craig's a great guy as well. And thanks for coming on, Matt.
Yeah, no, it's been a privilege. Good luck for the rest of the season, apart from Saturday. And
and we'll have to arrange like another one for the home game as well.
Yeah. Give us a shout. You've obviously got our email address, so just give us a shout, and either myself or Craig will we'll chip in somewhere. Yeah, definitely.
And Eugene, anything else we want to say before we finish off?
And as always, leave you out.
And call me Spurs. Call me Spurs.